Hello, everyone. My name is Danny, and this is my reading update for Friday, June 9th, 2017. If you've never been here before, I have a book blog and I do have a Goodreads account, and I will include links to both of those if you would like to read what reviews I've written or what types of books I've read before I started doing these reading updates on YouTube. I will tell you that I do read a lot of romance and I'm not ashamed of it. Not a lot of YA, but I'm trying to branch out to other genres. Okay, let's start off with what I've read this week. The two books that I read this week were books that have been sitting on my Kindle, in my Kindle app on my iPad for a while. If you watched my first Friday Reads last week, I did mention that I do have about 75 books that have been sitting there, except for, I'd say at least 50 of them have been there since about 2012 or 2013 when I discovered that you could get free books on Amazon. It wasn't until later that I discovered that a lot of them, not all of them, there's a lot of good self-published books, but there's also a lot of them that aren't so good. And so I'm just now starting to weed through these books because I let them sit there just as backup if I was stuck somewhere with nothing to read. Well, now I'm starting to weed through these books because I don't expect to get down to, zero inbox, as they say, but I want to, or zero reading list, or zero TBR, or whatever. But I want there to be a rotation. I want there to be some fresh titles in there so I'm not skipping over the same titles all the time. So, the first book I finished this week was Sometime Soon by Deborah Doxer. And yes, I'm looking over to the side because I do have my notes here. I'm an old lady. You can't expect me to remember everything off the top of my head. Sometime Soon by Deborah Doxer. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. And my one word review was like, meh. It wasn't quite a romance. I think I would call it more women's fiction than a romance because you don't even know who she's going to end up with until, in a romance, to me, in the romances that I've read, up front within the first, few pages that this is the hero, this is the heroine, let's see how long it takes them to get together. In this book, that wasn't the case. You just met this woman named Andrea, and she told you about her life. She likes everything about her life. Her job is pretty good. She just bought a house. She lives near family and friends in the area where she grew up, so everything's pretty cool. But whenever everybody keeps pushing her to start dating because everybody's either in a relationship or, getting married, what have you, and they keep pushing her to get coupled up. But as soon as she starts dating, she has such strict guidelines of what guys should do and what guys shouldn't do that she is, eliminating guys left and right. So she decides that she should probably take a dating hiatus because she's happy with everything else when she's not dating. It's just the dating that causes her anxiety and stress and sleepless nights. So she decides she shouldn't do it. So there's a lot of, there's an issue that her sister who's about to get married is going through. There's an issue that her best friend is going through with her boyfriend. There's an issue that crops up at her job, but none of the issues are super serious, and it doesn't take much to resolve them, so they don't really cause much stress or conflict. And the guy that she ends up with, there's not even really a relationship kind of situation till about halfway through the book. So, and the issue that keeps them apart isn't even discussed for a good bit of the book, and when they finally discuss it, it's done in like 2 pages. So it wasn't really a romance, and it wasn't unpleasant. It's the type of book, if you found it in the library on a cruise ship because you ran out of stuff to read. Yes, we go on a lot of cruises. If you find it in the library on a cruise ship because you ran out of stuff to read, then you'd be happy to find this book. It would while away the time while you're sitting on the deck, but it's not. When it's time to put it down because it's time to dress for dinner, you're not going to miss it that much. You're not skipping dinner for this book. You could. One of the things I like to do in my mind is the auntie test, which is, can you hand this to your 65-year-old aunt and not blush, or your old lady friend at church, or your neighbor, or what have you. Somebody that you don't know that well, so you don't know how much sex and violence they can handle in their books. Is this one of those books you can hand to them? And I think you could. There is like one situation where there's a coupling, but it's not described in depth. By the time somebody could work themselves up to blush, the scene is over. So I think you could hand this to somebody. But still, it was only 2 out of 5 because there was nothing overly compelling. That I kept turning the pages simply because I'm one of those people who once I start the story and get to a certain point in the story, I kind of need to know what happens with the characters unless the book is just truly awful. I kind of need to know what's going to happen. And so, I finished it. It was painless. It killed some time. The other book I finished this week was also a book that had been on my Kindle for a while, and it's called Unplugged: A Portrait of a Rock Star by J.P. Grider. This book I only gave 1 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I have a full review on my blog, but let's just say that this book was uneven. The writing was uneven and chunky, and I felt like the writer wasn't quite sure where she wanted to go with this book. If it was going to be, in romance. This was a straight up romance, but there wasn't a whole lot of conflict, enough of a push and pull between the hero and the heroine. And in romance, if you're not a big romance reader in romance, those of you who do read romance know that you have the sweet romance where it's completely clean, and then you have the inspirational romance where it's clean plus there's a whole faith element added to it. I read a lot of those. And then you have the hot romance where there is, more cursing, more sex described, blah blah blah. And this book felt like it wanted to ride the fence and step over on this side a minute and step over on that side a minute. And it also wanted to ride the fence between plain genre and more literary writing. And I don't know, it just didn't succeed for me. But both of these books, Sometime Soon and Unplugged, from the reading I saw, they both seem to be first-time novels for both of these authors. So it could be that they've worked out their kinks because they've both gone on to write a bunch of other books. And it could be that they worked out their kinks and things got better. One indication, I could be wrong, but one indication of this is that neither one of these books are available as ebooks anymore. You can still get them in paperback. And I'm going to put my book depository affiliate link down in the description. If you really want to check these out, do a sister a solid and buy them through my link. But they, because I know everybody's not like me. Both of these books got 5 stars from a bunch of people, 4 and 5 stars. So I know everybody's not like me. So if you want to check them out for yourself, help me support my caffeine habit and buy them through my link. But I think these authors may have done better work. I haven't tried any of their other works to find out, but this may have been where they worked out their kinks. Let's put it that way. Okay, so the two books I'm currently reading are not romances at all, but they do fit in with the theme of I've had them for a little while. Actually, the book that I've had, the book I'm reading is a murder mystery, part of a series. Let's see if we can see that without a glare. I think you can get the gist. It's called Whiskey Sour by J.A. Conrath. And it's the first book in a series called the Jack Daniels Mysteries. And um, it was released in 2004, but they did a ebook re-release in 2013, and that's when I downloaded it for free onto my Kindle app. I think I downloaded this because I knew when I downloaded this that this was not my thing. But I think I downloaded this because at a time when my husband briefly expressed an interest in possibly ebooks or audio ebooks. I don't know if I thought maybe I was going to read this to him. We did go through a period where I would because he's not a big reader, but he'll listen to an audiobook occasionally. And we went through a brief period in our newlywed phase when I would read books out loud to him. So I thought maybe I downloaded this because I thought it might appeal to him, either me reading it to him or him reading it himself or whatever. But that never came to pass, and it's been sitting in my Kindle app all this time. So I decided and I have one of the other books in the series, not book 2, but like maybe the 4th book or something came up for free. So I downloaded both of them. So it's also sitting on my Kindle app. I've started it. I haven't gotten deep into it yet. It's about a female. It's called Jack Daniels, but Jack short for Jacqueline. Nobody ever calls her that. It's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be one of those, murder mystery kind of comedy type things. But recently, I've also read some reviews that say the crime part, because there is a serial killer in this first book called the Gingerbread Man. That's not a spoiler. That's because I haven't even gotten hardly that far. But that's like on the second page, and it's also in the blurb. I may get through this book. I watch shows like Major Crimes with my husband, but I watch those shows not really for the murder, what the crime is and them solving the crime. I like the personalities of the people and what's going on in their interpersonal relationships. The same thing when I watch stuff like NCIS and Criminal Minds and Bones before it went off the air. All of those kind of things. I kind of watch them for the relationships between the people, not really, I could care less of whatever the crime of the week is. But somehow, most of the times when I've tried to read the printed equivalent of those kind of shows, I don't get the relationship part. I don't get the funny bantering back and forth and all of that. So this book is supposed to have that, but I've also read reviews that say it's very graphic. The murder part is very graphic. And I tried reading a horror novel once, not a Stephen King, but something else. And it was way too harsh for me. So I don't know if I'm going to get through this book. I'm going to try to give it a fair try. I'm going to try to get up to the 50-page mark and see, because that's me giving it a fair shake if I get to the 50-page mark. I'm going to try to get to the 50-page mark and see how I feel about it. I'm going to try not to because sometimes I have a habit of reading 5 pages and telling myself, okay, I gave it a fair shot, give me another romance now. So I'm going to try to be more fair than that and actually read it to the 50-page mark and see how I feel about it. The last book and this is an actual physical book, which is rare for me these days, because ever since, like I said, roughly 2012, 2013 was once I discovered that I could get ebooks through my library, I pretty much stopped getting physical library books. 98% of my reading comes from the library. That's one thing you need to know about me as a reader. 98% of my reading comes from the library. I do not have the budget to buy books. If I buy a book, it's most likely to either be a cookbook or a pattern book, and I haven't even bought any of those in over 10 years. So but I also don't drive, and I don't live in an area with public transportation, so it's difficult for me to get to the library to pick up books and get them returned. So once I discovered that I could get ebooks, I pretty much stopped requesting regular books from the library. But this book I actually won in a giveaway from Goodreads, because it was in celebration of the 10th anniversary of the publication of this book, called Then We Came to the End by Joshua Ferris. And this book has been on my Goodreads TBR list. That's when they notify you if something that's on your TBR list comes up in a giveaway. And that's how it's, because I don't enter the giveaways very often. So I went ahead and entered for it. I put it on my list. It's been on my reading list for at least 5 years, I think. And I entered it because it was supposed to be about what it's like to work in an office and the crazy things that happen in an office. And I used to work in an office. Almost all of my working life was spent in an office. So I thought that I would find this funny. I didn't expect, but I'm not a person who likes to read literary fiction that much. And I am finding from all the award lists that this was, shortlisted on, and some of the awards that it's won, that I'm thinking this may lean more toward literary fiction. And to me, literary fiction is one of those things where they give you pretty words, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And sometimes I'm in the mood to just enjoy the pretty words. And I might enjoy the pretty words in this book. Sorry, that's my phone. I don't feel like reaching for it. Sometimes I'm in the mood to enjoy the pretty words in the book. And I'm going to finish reading this book, and I'm going to write my impressions of it, because I'm not one of those people who can get a giveaway book or an ARC, advanced reader's copy, and not do the review right away. The only reason I haven't done the review on this one as quickly as possible is because I didn't realize until recently how much of a cost to the author it is for them to do a giveaway. Once I read an article about that, that they put these out more as promotion to get more sales for the books, I thought, it was just, I don't know what I thought. Since the book had already been published and it already had been in paperback for a while, I thought they were just giving it away just to be giving it away. I don't know what I was thinking. But like with ARCs, when I request an ARC, I do the review within 30 days. I don't do it way in advance. I do it within 30 days of the publication date, so that it can be in people's minds and the publication date isn't too far away and they can pre-order it or whatever. I can't be one of those people. I've seen TBR challenges, ARC challenges, where people are like, okay, let's get our ARCs down. I just saw one the other day where everybody's like, okay, let's work on this challenge and read our ARCs so that we can get our NetGalley ratio to the coveted 80%. And I'm like, 80%? I mean, I know I haven't requested that many ARCs, but my NetGalley ratio is at 100%, because I am too guilty to take a book and not read it and not review it. I feel like the ghosts of publishing past would come and haunt me in my sleep. If I get it, I gotta read it. I mean, I'm not trying to throw shade on anybody else. I just know my personality, that I can't take the book and not read it. Just like if you've seen any of my knitting and crochet podcasts, I can't buy the yarn and not make something with it, or at least donate it to somebody else who's going to make something with it if I find that I can't use it. I can't just be buying yarn because it's pretty, because it would cause me an anxiety attack. So I can't do that. So anyway, I've started reading this book. So far, as I said, just like the reviews I'm starting to see, because I didn't read the reviews before I requested it. I read the blurb, so I had an idea of what it was about, but I didn't have an idea of the style, that it was more literary than just a funny. So I have a feeling this is going to be all little, and what I'm getting so far is little paragraphs about, okay, we have this guy in the office and we have who does this weird thing, and we have that guy who does that weird thing, and haha, isn't that funny? So far, I've only read a few pages. Okay, not much, but so far I get the feeling that it's like I just saw a video, the 7 students you'll meet if you go to a historically black college, or the 5 people you meet if you work at a publishing company, or those kind of videos that you see on YouTube. This book feels like the equivalent of that. He just keeps telling stories of, there's blah 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 who always jams the copier, and there's blah 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 who always tells the jokes that aren't funny at the beginning of the meeting. And so I'm waiting for them to get to, okay, what, because the title, then we came to the end, so I'm thinking, okay, is the company going to be taken over? What kind of big event is going to drive this book? Or am I just going to read the thoughts of the crazy things that go in the office? We'll see. Anyway, that's what I am currently reading. I haven't picked anything that's up next. I just know that, because I'm hoping that I'll get these 2 books finished before next Friday reads. I know up next is going to be romances, because after I get through these 2, I'm going to be craving a romance. And I know that I do have some romances, because last April I went a little crazy. I mean, not last April, but just this past April, 2 months ago. I joined a group called Pioneer Hearts on Facebook, and I thought it was just a group that talked about the romances they read, but it's more a group of authors who are and readers, where the authors in the group are kind of promoting to the readers, hey, my book released this week, or hey, I'm offering this book for free today only. And it's all Western romances. And so I unwittingly signed myself back up for another one of those things where they notify me about free books. So before I knew it, in April and May, I downloaded another 20 free books after trying to clear off my TBR on my Kindle, which again, I know I'm not going to get down to 0, because I'm always going to find some book that I want to read. So that did bring in fresh books, but I want to try to get rid of some of these older books before I just start bringing in new books and reading those and skipping the older books again. So most likely next week I will do what I did this week and last week, which is go down to the stuff that's the oldest and pick something from there. So we're coming up on 25 minutes. If you have listened this long, I appreciate it. As I said, I plan to be here next week, but you know how people's plans go. But I plan to do a video next week. Hopefully I'll have new books to talk about. And as I said, the link to my Goodreads, if you want to see, because on Goodreads I have given impressions of books that I did not cover on my blog, and vice versa. I mean, there is some overlap, but Goodreads, you can see the kind of stuff I've read. On my blog, you can see more in-depth thoughts on some of the things that I've read, and I'll have the links to both of those in the description, and I'll have a link to I'll have my book depository affiliate link also in the description if you feel led to buy any of the books that I've mentioned today, or any book that you feel like buying. If you'll click through my link, I'd really appreciate it. So thank you, and talk to you next week. Bye bye.